All right. So today on the weekly Tech Hangout, my guest is Mr. Rob La Gesse, and he is the Chief Disruption Officer at Rackspace Hosting. So, Rob, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, so I'm a longtime Rackspace customer, about 11 years, and about almost 4 years ago, I finally met somebody who actually worked at Rackspace, even though I lived in San Antonio, where the company started and is still based. And the person I met was the chairman of the company, Graham Weston, and something just clicked, and there was just something special about him. And when he started talking about, you know, their goals and what they're doing in the community, it only took him about 3 months to get me back into working for a big company again, which I swore I'd never do. In between the last big public company I was at, I left, swore I'd never go back, spent 5 years as an independent consultant working, you know, out of this recliner right where I'm at during this, and I was, you know, making good money and honestly not working too hard. I had a consultancy where I build myself as a virtual CTO. So companies that people who had an idea for a web-based product, but they had no clue how to, you know, get a server, how to build software, how to find developers. I would do all of that for them, kind of as an outsourced CTO, and it was a lot of fun. But there was just something really compelling about this idea of going and building something big again, because I had spent 10 years with the company building Wi-Fi. So we took that company from, you know, like 12 engineers to thousands of people in a decade, and I missed that. You know, I missed walking through Best Buy with my kids and saying, "See that Linksys router? My stuff's in there. You know, yeah, that's my stuff." And you know, when you're a consultant, it's really hard to point at that stuff. So I wanted to change the world again, and you know, I think cloud computing is going to do that. So I joined Rackspace as the Director of Software Development for MOSA, which was then the Rackspace Cloud before it got rebranded. And I spent about 8 months as the Director of Software Development before I hired this guy named Robert Scoble, which we'll get to later. And once I hired Robert Scoble, my boss says, "Look, you can't manage this guy and developers, so, you know, we're going to move you to a new role." And that new role has meant many different things, from social media to the Rackspace Startup Program to, you know, running the team that speaks at many of our events, you know, the technical team. So so I run social media now. That's right. My title is Chief Disruption Officer, which I earned by never accepting average. I always pushed us for better, and when I didn't get it, I wasn't afraid to wake the chairman up at 3 o'clock in the morning and get it improved. And it was after one of those 3 a.m. phone calls that the next time I saw the chairman, he told me I was a disruptive force. And it was about 3 weeks later I found some business cards on my desk with the title Chief Disruption Officer. So that's where that comes from.
So this is, I mean, that's kind of, it makes sense because you were working in a small company where you got to do whatever you want. I mean, not whatever, but a lot more freedom. So when you go to a big company, do you think that kind of made you disruptive in a way?
I decided the only way I could be successful at Rackspace was to treat it like a small company. It kind of acts like one anyway. It's a big startup is the way we describe it. But I decided I just, you know, rules are made for people who don't understand the bigger picture, or dumb people, one of the two. And I'm not dumb, and I understand the big picture. So I considered that rules aren't made for. I actually, when I got the job offer, I sent an email that gave them all the reasons they shouldn't hire me. I'm hard to manage. I don't follow rules. I mean, because I love the company, but I really didn't want the job unless I knew I could go and change the world again. Yeah. So within minutes of sending that email saying, here's why you don't want to hire me, Lou Mormon, who's now the president of Rackspace, sent me an email back and said, now I want you even more. So I got an offer on a Thursday, and I started that Monday following. And, you know, to me, you know, I don't care about titles. I have a really cool title, but titles aren't important. It's the ability to move the ball. You know, whose ear do you have? How much voice do you have? And leverage. And a lot of times when people hear, you know, somebody in business use the word leverage, they're thinking like, I've got pictures of this guy with his boss's girlfriend or something. I don't mean that kind of leverage. I mean, you've got the historical data behind what you're doing that proves, okay, this guy has an 80%, because that's what I promised this company. I'd be right 80% of the time. 20% of the time, I'm totally going to blow it. Let's just figure that out up front, or, you know, realize that. But, you know, once you earn that reputation of delivering, then that's leverage, because that gives you the ability to move the ball further the next time.
Well, so you know, how do you get yourself to that place? Because obviously, somebody like me couldn't do that. I'm too young, too unknown, too inexperienced. How did you get yourself to that point where you could come into a company and say, I want to disrupt something?
Well, I came in the company to build cloud computing software, not to be disruptive, except in that little bitty small team I had at the time. It was only when, you know, I moved out of that software development role and into, I actually report to corporate communications now. I'm a 25-year software development guy, right? Now I work in corporate communications. They were always the enemy. But, you know, now I see it from their perspective. It's amazing. But once I moved into that role, having led the cloud developers and it being a very fast-growing business, and the fact that I was hired by the chairman, I mean, that always helps. Hint, if you can make that happen, make it happen. It gave me a lot of voice. Now, I will admit that I misused that power a little bit, or that relationship with senior leadership a few times. And, you know, I either self-slapped myself or others slapped me down a little bit, which is good. It didn't show me limits, but it showed me to be. What it showed me is to first expect the best of others, even if you're assuming the worst, until proven otherwise. And I used to, for some reason, there was a period there where I was kind of expecting people to under-deliver. And now I don't do that anymore. I expect them to over-deliver. And if they don't, then, you know, I'm not shooting emails to senior leadership anymore. One of our core values at Rackspace is friends and family. You know, we treat all of our employees as friends and family. And since I grew up in Moso, you know, started in Moso, we were in a totally different building in downtown San Antonio, completely disconnected from the Rackspace culture, and we were kind of too new to have our own culture. So the Rackspace core values, we really didn't believe in them. It was only after I moved, you know, after Moso was rebranded the Rackspace Cloud, and we all moved in the same building, and I realized, oh my God, these people are amazing. I mean, they have each other's back. If you have an employee whose house burns down, another employee may have, and this really happened, rental property, and this was like 8 days before Christmas. Employee's house burns down, another guy's got vacant rental property, says, live in this house as long as you want while you get your feet back together. And then a bunch of rackers, which is what we call our employees, a bunch of rackers donated furniture and toys for the kids. I mean, it really is a family. And once I realized that, I realized, you know, the way I've been doing business is probably not the best way to do business in this company.
And this kind of plays into the next question I was going to ask you. Your strategy for marketing at Rackspace is extremely different from any other company I've seen. Even you know, small company. You know, you guys focus on social media, blogging, getting really close to your customers in a real way. You know, What tell me a little bit more about that and how you use the marketing perspective of Rackspace.
Yeah, so Rackspace is a B2B company. We don't do a lot of B2C. Most of our customers are businesses, not consumers. I mean, there are a couple of products like Jungle Disk, a desktop backup client, that's B2C, but that's a very, very small part of our business. So we're B2B in what we do for our business, but we're really B2C in our marketing. We want to personally, market to people the way they want to be marketed to, first off. So if you want to follow us on Twitter and learn about us there, that's fine. Facebook, that's fine. What we started to do in 2009, after the bubble burst, we do a lot of online advertising, but we used to do a lot more banner ads and such. But in 2009, that market basically went away. I mean, when the economy shifted, people just weren't clicking banner ads anymore.
Right.
And our target audience was honestly running ad blockers. So they weren't seeing our targeted ads anyway. So we shifted a lot of resources to things that got us in front of our customers. Like at events, we probably, in 2008, we probably did 5 events. In 2010, we probably did 60 events. Mm-hmm. Last year, we did over 100 events.
Wow.
And at every one of those events, we have rackers who are technical. They can actually talk the talk with customers.
Right.
And then on my team, with social media, way back in 2009, we started doing tweet ups every town we went to. We were in town for an event. We were staying at a hotel somewhere, so after we got done with the event, we'd go to the hotel and we'd just say, Rackspace tweet up, come meet us and ask us questions. So we really built this personal relationship with people. Now, that's that part of the marketing. The other part of the marketing that is interesting is, why would a company like Rackspace in San Antonio, Texas, go hire a geek blogger like Robert Scoble?
Right.
And that's actually an interesting story, because I didn't know Scoble until shortly before I worked for Rackspace. I was doing my consulting thing. I had 1 kid in college. I went, oh God, next year I'm going to have 2 kids in college. I need to make some more money. So I figured a good way to do that was for me to invite 7 local tech companies, new startups, to one place and invite Scoble to come interview them. So he could do 7 interviews in 7 hours, not have to break up and down gear and everything. And he was going to South by Southwest, 80 miles up the road.
Right.
So I figured he could spend a day here. So I sent him an email and asked him if he could spend a day, and within a few minutes I got an email back and said, no way, South by Southwest is too busy. So that disappointed me, but I had a plan B, because what Scoble didn't know is the year before I had bought his wife a $500 gift certificate to a day spa after she had their first baby. So when he sent me the I can't do it email, I just forwarded it to her and said, it's a bummer. I really wanted to meet Robert. So 15 minutes later, Robert calls me and says, I guess I'm coming to San Antonio.
Blackmail.
Well, I didn't blackmail him. I cornered him. There's a difference. What I did wasn't illegal. Right. So anyway, then once Scoble agreed, and I talked to these companies, they all want their CEO, their CMO. I suddenly realized there's 53 people who are going to be, at this event. Mm-hmm. And I'm working out of my house. I don't have room for 53 people. I was a Rackspace customer, even though I had never talked to anybody there except my account manager. I just picked up the phone and called the 800 number and asked to talk to somebody in PR and said, I need a room. A training room, I need, internet and an overhead projector and good lights. And they said they'll get back to me. They called me the next day, gave me the room. So I finalized everything with Robert and Rocky, getting them flown down here. Mm-hmm. These 7 companies all showed up. Nobody paid me a penny. I didn't make a dime off it. It was all free. Robert and Rocky were at Fast Company then. They did all these interviews. that's the first time I ever met Robert and Rocky. And at the end of the day, our chairman, Graham Weston, comes walking in the room along with Lou Mormon, and they meet Scoble, we get to talking, and all of a sudden Graham Weston says, "What are you guys doing for dinner?" Well, Robert and Rocky had planned on heading back to their hotel, checking out, and zooming back up to Austin, but they liked Graham. He's an amazing personality, so they said, "Why? What do you want to do?" He says, "Let's go downtown on the Riverwalk, and I'll buy you dinner." So we went down, extended their hotel room for a day, had dinner with the chairman of Rackspace, and he convinced Robert and Rocky to spend another day in San Antonio and go visit the demolition of what we call the Castle, which is our corporate headquarters. It's used to be a 1.3 million square foot shopping mall that we bought, and we've converted it to our corporate headquarters. But at the time we visited, it was a shell. There were bulldozers, little bobcats in there ripping things out. They recycled 900 tons of metal. They let Habitat for Humanities come in, take whatever they want. Anyway, Robert Scoble and Rocky did this great video for Fast Company. Unbeknownst to me at the time, this is just before Rackspace had their IPO on 08/08/08. So the video that Robert and Rocky did went up, and it turned out to be a great pre-IPO video. Right, it was talking about the amazing thing these companies are doing. Scoble wrote this blog post about, the best CEO or chairman he had ever met, about Graham Weston, and that was kind of that. It was shortly after that, a month after that, that I joined the company, I think.
So it's your ability to bring together all these people and think really, was that part of what Rackspace saw in you eventually?
Well, I think it's what we figured out is where my strengths are after I was hired. I thought I was a software development manager, and so did they. And it turns out when you manage software, you need to care about two things. You need to care about people, and you need to care about things like timelines and schedules. And it turns out I really don't care about things. I care about people. So now I'm in a role where I'm 100% focused on people, whether it's customers, in social media or in, helping customers, the startup program, everything I do is people. But in any case, a year ago, almost a year goes by, and the economy had gone to hell. Fast Company had to lay off Rocky, the producer who works with Scoble. And Rocky called me on a Friday night and said, "Dude, I need a job or some freelance. If there's anything you can do, let me know." So I called Lou Mormon and said, "I can hire Rocky." And he was literally like, "Really? That's interesting. Could you hire Scoble?" And I went, "Whoa, I don't know. Let me ask." So I called Scoble and said, would you consider working for Rackspace if we hired you and Rocky? And he goes, "Hell yeah, but I have a contract with Fast Company." So it turns out our chairman knew the guy who owns the company that owns the company that owns Fast Company or something. So we got the contract taken care of. And then shortly before South by Southwest in 2009, right? Yeah. We came to terms and brought those guys on as employees. And that's when my boss said, "You're not managing developers anymore. You're managing Robert and Rocky." And when we hired them, we did not know what we were going to do with them.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say next. What were you going to do with this blogger and producer? Did you have any idea at all, or you just think he was a good guy?
Well, we knew he was well known in the tech sector, and I knew that I had been to events in San Francisco where nobody knew who Rackspace was, or very few people, and that bothered me. And I think we had a gut feeling that this would be a good move. And it was a big bet. I mean, they're 2 employees in California. They're a lot more expensive than employees are, in other places that we operate. But we literally made the gamble and spent the next 3 weeks figuring out what we're going to do with them. And we came up with the idea of really wanting to help startups, which was we didn't call it a startup program or anything like that. It was building43.com, which I mean, there's some amazing videos there. Scoble did a video with Mark Zuckerberg that's been watched hundreds of thousands, or 100,000 times at least.
Mm-hmm.
We have a visitor.
Yeah. Hey, David. We apparently, I was having some trouble opening this up, and apparently we can have guests. I just not everybody can for some reason. I don't know why. So I wanted to also go back and ask you about something you mentioned earlier, Rob. We were talking about your transition from being a tech guy to being a marketing guy. And now I've worked in some engineering departments before, and I know that engineers give marketing team a lot of slack for being not as important in a lot of times as what they think. How was that transition for you, and did you ever catch any, your old colleagues kind of giving you crap about it, or was it pretty simple?
Well, to be clear, I never technically went into marketing. I went into corporate communications, but I influenced strategic marketing. Mm-hmm. And I actually got to spend some marketing dollars every month because the general manager liked crazy ideas, crazy ways of thinking. So he said, Rob, you think crazy, go spend, X amount of dollars a month, and all you have to do is tell me what you spent it on at the end of the month. You don't need to get permission. Just tell me how you spent it. And I'm like, I can do that. So, I did things like sponsored Techstars Boulder Founders Series videos, which, we hired a videographer who followed all the startups around every day and told their stories of what it's like to be in a startup accelerator like Techstars. Mm-hmm. That started a relationship with Techstars that led to the Rackspace Startup Program and now to Techstars Cloud, which is taking place right now here in San Antonio. It's the same format as Techstars in all the other locations, but it's focused on cloud technology companies.
Okay.
So some of my ex-employees who were friends, I tend to make friends with employees. Over a beer, would they give me a little crap about, going to the dark side? Yeah, they would. But it was all in fun. I think everybody realized that I was in a better place and could contribute more to the company than, trying to pretend that I was something I wasn't, like a software developer.
Right.
I haven't written code in 10 years, so.
Yeah. Well, I guess you got to know what you're doing to pursue that, right?
Yeah. Well, it also helps. A company at Rackspace, we take these Strengths Finders tests before we're hired, right? Mm-hmm. And they give you your top 5 strengths, and it could be activator, achiever, teacher, learner, individualization. There's all these various things, and all 5 of mine point towards me being focused on people. None of them point towards me being focused on, the brainiac side of the house. It's all more the interaction, human interaction part. So, once we realized that, what I tended to do in the job and what my strengths told me I should do in the job didn't line up, we made a change, and it's just worked out really well.
Well, let me ask you this too. As far as the way Rackspace social media and their interaction with their business customers, what kind of things do you think smaller companies start at can learn from you guys' strategy?
Well, we took a different tact with social media. Everybody on my social media team is an actual engineer. So we don't have marketing and PR people doing social media. Mm-hmm. If you ask a tough Linux question to our Rackspace accounts, it's going to be a Linux engineer who's reading that. So when I was asked to come up with a social media strategy for Rackspace, I went and I downloaded all these PowerPoints, 173 slides of social media policies, and I just couldn't wrap my head around it. So I had to go and present this to my bosses, what the policy is, and they gave me like 15 minutes. And I walked in and I opened my laptop. I had one slide and it had 2 words on it: be helpful. And to this day, that's our social media strategy, and that's it. Be helpful. So every time we want to, or marketing or anybody wants to post something on social media, mm-hmm. it has to pass that bar. Is it helpful? I think what a lot of small companies do, and even SMBs, small medium sized businesses, they overemphasize trying to sell people instead of trying to help people. We even help our competitors, which blows them away. You know, we'll have somebody say, I'm trying to install, you know, this certain plugin on WordPress on XYZ hosting company, and we'll point them at our knowledge base article and say, it will install just like this. Good luck. And it's amazing how many of those people, you know, reply back to us, damn, I'm switching to Rackspace. I mean, you guys, you're helpful.
Right.
So I think that's a big part of the way we've been winning on social media is it's not just my team that's focused on that be helpful mantra. We've driven that throughout the organization now. Everybody knows they have to meet that bar.
Right. So before Rackspace was involved in several startups, from what I understand, is that right?
Yep.
And can you tell me a little bit about that experience and kind of how it led you to where you are in Rackspace as well?
Well, I worked on Wi-Fi. I'll say I helped invent Wi-Fi over a decade's time period. Didn't get rich off it, but made a little bit of money off it. So when I decided to leave that and the big corporate world, I thought, well, I got a little money. I'm going to be a VC or an angel investor. Dumb idea. I had no clue what I was doing. I invested in Ruby on Rails based companies in 2004 when Ruby on Rails was at like version 0.8. Not a good idea. So I decided first off I needed to learn a whole bunch more about how investors work and how startups work. So I turned to social media for that. And you know, started a blog, but everything that prepared me for the job I currently have happened between 2004 and 2008 when I was a consultant, and really just learning, you know, spending a lot of time learning from other people on social media and learning about it myself and meeting with as many startups as I could and draining their brains and figuring out, you know, what makes a startup work and what makes one fail, because I've ridden some failures. And what I realized is it's always the people, right? It's the team. The idea, I really don't care much about ideas anymore. I think something like 30%, I don't know the math, but a significant number of the people that go in most startup accelerators completely change what they're building during the 3-month or whatever period that they're in the accelerator. So obviously, if the accelerators has a 68% success rate, and 30% of people are changing their minds, it's all about the teams and not the ideas.
Yeah.
So
I think a good point. I think this is interesting because it leads right into what I was going to ask you next, which is building 43. Originally was kind of talks about startups, right?
Yeah.
And now you guys are kind of shifting the focus on rebranding Building 43. Is that right?
Yeah, so all the Building 43 content will stay. But, you know, Robert and Rocky Scoble, and they used to work for me until about 3 months ago. And I had started the Rackspace Startup Program, which, you know, we partnered with Techstars and 500 Startups and others I'm missing. But anyway, big startup incubators. And we wanted to focus on letting startups tell their story. And also, we wanted them to start their startups on Rackspace, of course. So we came up with a program where they got some free hosting, and you know, we would do cross-publicity with them when it made sense. We don't do a lot of it. I mean, it's really got to make sense. But once we had that established, I started thinking, you know, being in that team, which reported into marketing, the startup program, being in that team made a lot more sense for Scoble and Rocky than being on my team in social media, because they were really out there talking to the startups every day. I mean, that was their job. Plus, you know, we just opened a new office in San Francisco, so we built a studio so startups can easily drop by and do videos with Scoble. So we moved him from the social media, my team, over to marketing, and now he's focused on our startup program, which has our slogan going into South by Southwest and for this year is small teams, big impact. So we want to tell the stories of those small teams. And it's not just tech teams, right? There's 3 people that are installing all the glass in the World Trade Center. 3 people. That's a small team with a big impact. The family that paints the Golden Gate Bridge, I think there's something like 9 or 11 of them. Small team, big impact. So it doesn't always have to be tech. It probably mostly will be because it's... But, getting people to realize that you don't have to be Microsoft to change the world. And as a matter of fact, you may be able to change it more if you're not Microsoft, is really where we want to go. Because what we've found over the 12 years now that we've been in business is we don't tend to have big hosting companies come and move to Rackspace. We find these little bitty tiny startups like YouTube that nobody ever heard of, and we get them on Rackspace, and then they grow to where they've got hundreds and hundreds of servers.
Right.
And they would have still be on Rackspace if they weren't bought by Google and moved into a Google data center. But but our startups tend to grow up and stay with us because we focus on support.
How is that technical standpoint? Because obviously the needs of very small businesses are way different than the needs of mid-sized businesses when they get their out there. How do you guys deal with that from the technical side?
Well, cloud helps with that a lot now because you can spin up new servers so quickly. But it all depends on what you mean by small businesses, because let's look at if you're talking about a mom and pop jewelry store, they need a simple website, maybe an e-commerce cart. Probably not even that, because most mom and pop jewelers aren't shipping all over the world. Somebody told them they had to have a website, so they create one. But contrast that with a social media related startup where it used to be where you could do a startup and it may take you 3 years to get 100,000 customers. It may take you 3 years to need your second server even. But now you can go from 0 to 30 million in a year. And you've got to plan for that scale up front. And that's what we're seeing with a lot of these startups. They're really planning for things like high traffic, big data, because data, if you think about the amount of data just in pictures that Facebook has to store every day, it's probably more information than any single company had ever had to store before like 2007. It's phenomenal. So we're seeing a different kind of customer in the software startup space if they have any kind of social app. They're already planning big. They're planning for big. But the good thing about the cloud is they can start very small, but the code they've written can be easily scaled by just adding more web servers, more database servers, and so on. Unlike pre-cloud, where if you called and you wanted another server, a provider like Rackspace would call Dell, we'd order the server, Dell would build the server, they would ship it to us at one of our data centers. Somebody would go get it off the truck, they'd put the drives in it, they'd go find the right place, plug it in. It took weeks. And we literally reduced that to about a minute and a half. And no upfront contracts. So there, with traditional managed hosting, we have a dedicated machine. You basically are leasing the machine. So there's a contract. With cloud, there's no contracts. And with cloud, if you, in 3 months, realize, I screwed up, I overestimated what I need by 3x, just killed, 2/3 of your servers. Pay for only what's still there. And through software that monitors your servers, you can actually you can be sound asleep and dynamically be killing or spinning up new instances based on the traffic that you need.
That's really cool.
It's a totally different dynamic. It's what is allowing so many startups to start up, because the cost of entry, the barrier to entry right now, is very, very low. If you've got a $5,000 credit card that doesn't, nothing charged on it. You can start a company on $5,000. And it used to be where, you would have to go to some VC and say, I need $60,000 for a data center, for, a cluster of servers.
Well, we were talking about social. I know obviously you're pretty involved in social networks. You're on Google Plus, Twitter, Facebook, and all the big ones. And there's a lot of startups still coming out in this space. How much room do you see being left for startups trying to start in social, a new social network?
I love it when I hear people tell me there'll never be another social network. They're done. Facebook is one. Bullshit. It's like saying there'll never be a new model of car.
Right.
No.
Right.
What we couldn't envision the technology we have today 5 years ago. So if somebody tells me there will never be another social network, I'm sorry, because in 5 years there's going to be new technologies, and guess what? Facebook is going to be a big, slow company then. And they're not going to be able to react to those technology shifts, just like Microsoft wasn't able to when Facebook came along. So there is, I think, a unbelievable opportunity in the future for social network. But I think what you're going to see is a lot of niche social networks.
Mm-hmm.
I think there may be a couple more big ones, but I think. And we're seeing it already with some of the startups we're looking at now, where it is a social network for plumbers,
right.
or literally a social network for cable TV technicians, because they want to go someplace where all they see is what they want to talk about. They don't see a picture of a walrus playing with a ball. It's all work-related. And the good thing about that is it will allow people to more easily separate their technical online personas with their personal online personas.
Right.
And I think recruiters in the future will look at both, but they'll put a lot more weight on, what are you doing in your professional social network than the fact that you had a lampshade on your head at a holiday party in your personal social network.
Yeah.
So I think that's an interesting opportunity for companies, but I don't think we've scratched the surface in social, which is kind of good but kind of scary. I think there's probably 3 companies on this planet who know where I'm at every minute of the day, because I just have apps on my phone that.
Sure.
And I give them permission, so it's not like I'm afraid of it, but. I just think, companies that get privacy right are probably going to win better than those who don't.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So let me Rob, introduce you to David Rose, who came in and is hanging out with us today. He actually lives in Knoxville as well. And I was going to see if he had any questions for you at this point.
Well, first for joining. Usually a little bit livelier crowd. It looks like a few folks are out on the front side. Can't get in.
Right.
But we normally have quite a few people in here. I tell you, some of the things that we're talking about are interesting, specifically social network that might potentially in the future, sort of pop up or what's in the future. I've been installing things like Dom Social and Umala sites and trying to get little small niche social media going for small companies like even an energy company, where they're trying to get people, kids and students to post videos and to participate in sort of their own little subculture society or community, if you will. But it's a hard thing. So one of the things you're talking about is building complete companies and using the cloud and using Rackspace services, to host those companies so that you can easily spin up and scale. We have another company here called Voices Heard Media, And Voices Heard Media is exactly that. It's an example of a startup business that has question and answer widget. And the widget they're using, you can put in the question to, say, a sports star, an athlete, and people can vote the question up. And that way, the athlete or the mayor or that's receiving all the questions can answer the top 10 rather than all. Simple idea and brought to a professional football player. So he took his life in the professional football playing and said there's got to be a better way. But I watched him go from nothing and needing to use the cloud and very quickly. A Rackspace service totally invaluable. For them.
Yeah, it's a different world.
It is. Yeah. I guess I work with small businesses, and each one of those just use their website and see like control the mom and pops there. But you never know. Whether they spin up new sites and grow.
Well, I think that's kind of another thing that we're going to see as cloud is it's an infant. I mean, it's almost a premature baby at this point. It is such a new technology. But as it matures, I think you're literally going to be able to be a mom-and-pop company and log into your website, click on an admin button, and say, okay, it's time we start doing e-commerce. Grab an e-commerce widget, drop it, or drag it, drop it on your website, and boom, you're now an e-commerce site.
Right.
And all the back end is going to be, it's all software as a service, right? It's all provided. You get one bill from your provider. If you need polling, the same thing happens. Drag, drop polling. I know there's sites out there that let you build websites like that now, but they don't let you connect all those technologies, like your e-commerce and say you need content delivery network. You've got you're selling pictures and you want to be able to let people see a large view of that picture. Hosting those on your server is expensive. You want to keep that on a content delivery network. So you drag over the widget for content delivery, and you don't need to know anything about how it works at all. You need to know two things. What will it cost me, and when will it be live? And the answer, when will it be live, is as soon as you drop it. As soon as you drag it and drop it, it's live. So, and how far are we from that? I don't know if it's 5 years or less or more, but I was hoping you were going to announce something because I'm not the announcing guy. But I mean, I do think even sooner than that, we're going to see the ability for people to go to a website and say, show me my infrastructure at Rackspace or at Amazon or at Yahoo or wherever, and you're going to be able to literally say I'm cloud only at Rackspace. You're going to be able to say, I need 2 dedicated servers now, and you just click and drag them over, and it configures your network for you. And you drop a load balancer, you drop a firewall, you drop a RAID array, a SAN storage, whatever you want. And as you're dropping them, the price tag on the sidebar keeps incrementing, so you know exactly what you're going to pay. And then
sounds like you've got a vision already.
I've talked about this internally, and it's not a secret that it would be great if we could get there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a product that we're announcing. It's not even anything that, I don't know if we're working on it or not. Maybe we are. I'm sure we are somewhere. But it doesn't matter. To me, it's an obvious, something obvious that's going to happen in the future. But the thing that is kind of exciting and cool about that to me is you can't, once you drag all that together, you're not going to get away with just clicking buy it, because the software is going to be smart enough to go, hold on a second. Let me look at this for you, because there may be a better way to do it that I can save you money or save you time or save time to first byte or whatever it is. And without having to talk to a human at all, you're going to get the best brains in the world, encapsulated within algorithms and code, who will design the most optimal network for you at your price point. And that, I think, is magic, or will be.
That sounds awesome.
Yes. I want it now.
Well, I have one question that was sent in from my friend Christian Reyes, and he is down in Atlanta, Georgia. He owns a small business, and he was asking if you had any advice for entrepreneurs that run small focused teams, and how do they manage a high level of customer support as you grow in numbers of people and in clients? Do you have any thoughts on that?
It depends on the type of business, right? I mean, is this a 24-hour business where you need 24/7 support? If so, one of the companies that we acquired in 2008 called SliceHost, they had an amazing following and an amazing support. They threw up an IRC channel, and they always had employees in the IRC channel. They didn't have a ticketing system. They didn't have a phone number at that time. If you wanted support, you went in, and one of the engineers was actually in the IRC. So in real time, you're asking your question, and normally the engineers didn't even have to answer it because the community was there. There would be hundreds of customers at a time in this IRC channel doing the support, saving you that money. So depending on the business, I mean, that was a need where a case where they needed 24/7, but they couldn't really staff it. So the IRC channel made a lot of sense because, in the middle of the night when they weren't awake, their customers in Japan were awake and were answering questions for the other customers.
Right.
So they grew their support channels by using their community, which was a really, really good way. Anytime I talk about support, I wonder what people mean, because if you call our 1-800 number at Rackspace, a human being will answer in 1 or 2 rings almost every time. When our chairman gives a talk, he always, holds up his cell phone and says, "Who in the audience has a phone?" Now, when he did this, 6 years ago, there weren't that many people compared to now has cell phones. But, now he'll just pick somebody out and he'll say, "Call this number." And he'll give them the 800 number, and he'll wait a few seconds. He'll say, "What do you hear?" And they'll say, "I'm talking to a human." And he'll say, "Thank you, you can hang up." We don't have we have on hold and hold music because sometimes we have to put people on hold to transfer them, but we don't have a telephone answering system. We have humans who answer the phone. But, how do you provide that level of support? Well, Rackspace is a premium hosting company. We don't want customers who want, if cheap is your #1 decision factor, you are not a good fit for us.
Right.
We're not going to be the cheapest. We're never going to be the cheapest. We want to be partners, and we want to be the most helpful, and we want to have an army of engineers across disciplines that are available 24/7 so that we never have to tell you, we'll get somebody to look at that on Monday.
Well, you know what I thought what you just said was the community that some businesses can use, like community of customers to answer customer support questions, because a lot of customers, maybe a new customer has questions that an old customer had 6 months ago, and they can answer it for them. Do you think that's something that could apply to a lot of small, smaller businesses as well? I think that seems like something that would be really useful.
Yeah, I think every business could benefit from that. The problem is, until you got that drag and drop widget that says, "Give me a customer community," it's too much work. People just don't understand how to make it work. I did see in our Rackspace startup program a new company that basically embeds your own private IRC channel in a widget. They haven't launched yet, so I can't say any more. But that would be pretty amazing. And they offer it as a SaaS solution, right? So it's software as a solution. I don't know what their billing model is yet or anything, but that seems like, if you know how to install a WordPress widget, you could easily install, and then in the sidebar of your blog or your corporate website, you've got the live chat going. But before you even get to that point, if you don't have a product and a company that your customers love, they're not going to help your other customers.
Sure.
They're going to get in there. They're going to be disruptive. And they're going to be mean. That's why it's best if you're doing these public channels if you can moderate them, or even better, you can appoint some of your greatest promoters, your customers who promote you the most, make them your moderators. So the community becomes self-policing.
Yeah.
I do think there's a lot of interesting things around support, and if I'm talking about my phone company, I'm happy if they answer the phone after an hour. It's I have a hard time with support. I think customer satisfaction is a better way to put it, because if I call in for support, that's one thing. But if did I get it or not, I don't know. But if I call in, customer satisfaction, was I satisfied? Yes. Okay, good. Now I know that works. And satisfaction is something that's pretty. It's pretty straightforward, right? Were you satisfied or not? Period. Whereas, were you supported or not? Well, I was supported, but not very well. So we use the Net Promoter Score at Rackspace, commonly referred to as NPS, where we ask our customers one single question: how likely would you, on a scale of 0 to 10 or 1 to 10, how likely would you be to recommend Rackspace to a friend or a colleague or whatever? And truly great companies like Nordstrom's are in the 80s. The vast majority of U.S. companies are well below the 40s. Well below the 40s, like down in the 20s range. Companies like Zappos, Rackspace, Apple, they're up in the high 50s, low 60s, in that range. So, our goal as a company is to become the world's greatest service company in tech. So we want to be the Nordstroms of tech companies. We're not there. We got a lot of work. We're a young company, but we remind our employees and ourselves that all the time. So that's what we're always striving for. A lot of the problems I see with especially small companies is they don't know what they're striving for. Mm-hmm. What does good support mean to them? Does it mean that they don't get called and bitched out on the phone? Is that their only measure of good support? Because that bar, that's a low threshold. If all you want to do is prevent somebody from tracking your phone number down and chewing you out, you want to build an army of promoters. You want your customers to be your best salespeople. Mm-hmm. And you have to amaze them to do that. You have to do things like a couple of years ago we had two companies, both customers, who rented an RV together up in Minnesota, I think, and they were driving down to South by Southwest, and they made it all the way to like 40 miles north of Dallas, which is still 5 hours away. But they tweeted that their RV broke down, stuck on the side of the road, that they were tired and hungry. So we found the nearest Pizza Hut to their location. We got their mile number marker from them, and we sent them pizzas and sodas to the side of the freeway. That amazed them. And they still tell that story. And believe me, convincing a Pizza Hut manager to go to mile marker, 137 out in the middle of nowhere, it was not easy.
Oh, that's pretty funny. I wanted to ask you one last question before we go, because I've got it's about 5 o'clock, and I've got other commitments, unfortunately. I would talk all day if I could, but so last question that some of the, maybe my younger viewers may be interested in, what kind of people does Rackspace look to hire? And, what kind of skills, what kind of former experience? Do you hire a lot of people from startups? Do you hire people from bigger companies or mix? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I do. It's a big mix. We focus on people who are by nature helpful. They want to serve customers, or they want to serve, customers either internal or external. Team dynamics are a lot more important than skill sets. We believe we can teach anybody Linux within reason. But you can't teach everybody empathy. we have a saying that we don't want to hire brilliant assholes. And it's true. In our current hiring guidelines, or the way, not the guidelines, but the way our hiring works is if you interview with a team of 5 and one team member gives you the worst possible rating, then you cannot be overruled. That employee cannot be hired.
Like a black hole.
Right. And if 3/5, or say there's 5 people, if 3/5 of the people give you the lowest rating, you will never interview at Rackspace again. We have so many people apply for every open position. We're hiring about 140 people a month right now, and we've been doing that steady over the last year and a half, 2 years. We have a lower acceptance rate now than Harvard or Yale. So we're picky, but we want amazing people who, they want to change the world and they want to change people's lives doing it, and they want to come to work every day in a fun, happy place. I mean, we've got a mall with a food court, and it's not unusual for a mariachi band to be marching down. It's not unusual for a team of rackers to break out into a dance routine. We've just got this amazing little culture that's just fun. So a lot of people want to come here, and the more people that want to come here, the more and more difficult it is for us to filter and make sure that we're always hiring the right people.
Mm-hmm.
So
it sounds like you guys have put in the right culture to attract interesting people, for sure. So that's good for you guys. That's hard to do these days.
Well, we spend a lot of time and effort working on the culture. It doesn't just happen. So yeah.
Well, Rob, unfortunately I have to go. And David, thanks for joining me. And Rob, thank you so much for giving me an hour of your time. I really appreciate it. If I'm ever in Texas, I'm going to call you up and stop by and say hey again. But
okay, great.
Until then, it was really great talking to you. And any last words?
No, thanks for joining us, David. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thank you very much.
All right, we'll see you around Google Plus, Rob.
Have a great weekend.
All right, bye.